Imagine sitting across from someone who looks entirely out of place for her time. Her posture is straight, her gaze sharp, her clothing decades ahead of the world around her. She's wearing trousers, a tailored coat, and a top hat. Not to disguise herself, not to shock anyone, but because she thinks clearly, breathes freely, and moves boldly in clothes designed for liberty rather than limitation. And when she speaks, the room quiets, not because she raises her voice, but because her conviction does all the talking. That woman is Mary Edwards Walker, and her life is one of the most extraordinary, defiant, and courageous stories in American history. Born on November 26, 1832 in Oswego, New York, Mary Walker entered the world in a home already shaped by rebellion. Her parents, Alva and Vesta Walker, were abolitionists, free thinkers, and advocates for equality long before such ideas were fashionable. They believed in education, they believed in progress, and they believed that girls should grow up as boldly as boys. When you ask Mary in this imaginary interview where her confidence began, she might smile and say, "At home. That's where I learned that equality is not a dream, it's a birthright." From an early age, Mary refused to conform. While her sisters wore dresses, she wore trousers to help with farm work. While other girls practiced sewing, she studied her father's medical books. She loved the human body, not the romanticized version discussed in polite society, but the real biological functional beauty of anatomy. She saw illness not as fate, but as a puzzle to solve, and she wanted to solve it. This desire led her to Syracuse Medical College, one of the few schools in the United States willing to admit women. Even then, she sat in lecture halls filled mostly with skeptical men. She graduated in 1855, becoming one of the first female physicians in America. Imagine her in that moment, young, determined, diploma in hand, but entering a world that refused to take her seriously. Patients questioned her, hospitals rejected her, male doctors mocked her, but Mary Walker didn't walk away. She built a private practice, she treated the poor for free, and she wore trousers. To Mary, clothing was not fashion, it was freedom. She believed Victorian women's dresses, heavy, restrictive, dangerously tight, were a health hazard. So she wore practical attire, and for that she was harassed, arrested, even threatened. But she never bent. When a policeman once demanded, "Why are you dressed like a man?" she replied, "I am not. I am dressed like myself." Then, the Civil War broke out, and everything in Mary's life changed. At the war's start in 1861, Mary rushed to volunteer as a surgeon. But the U.S. Army, despite desperate need, refused to hire a female doctor. They offered her nursing work instead. She refused. "I am a trained surgeon. I will serve as a surgeon or not at all." So Mary found her own way in. She treated wounded soldiers anyway, working as an unpaid field surgeon, performing amputations, extracting bullets, dressing wounds in makeshift tents near the front lines. She served at Bull Run, at Fredericksburg, at Chickamauga. When you picture her there, the sounds of cannon fire and screams all around her, she seems impossibly small, but she was unstoppable. She treated both Union and Confederate soldiers because to her, humanity mattered more than uniforms. Finally, in 1863, the Army relented and hired her officially as an assistant surgeon, the first and only woman in the Civil War to serve in that role. She wore a modified officer's uniform, complete with sword. Soldiers were stunned. Some laughed, some saluted, but no one doubted her skill. Her greatest act of courage came in 1864, while she was working near the front lines of Tennessee. Mary often crossed into Confederate territory to treat civilians, something incredibly dangerous. One day, she didn't return. Confederate soldiers captured her, accused her of being a spy, and imprisoned her in Richmond. You can imagine her recounting this moment in our interview, saying calmly, "They threatened me, they interrogated me, but their fear was nothing compared to my resolve." For 4 months, she endured harsh conditions, malnutrition, disease, isolation. When she was finally released in a prisoner exchange, she weighed barely 90 pounds, but her spirit remained unbroken. She returned to her work immediately. For her service, courage under fire, and dedication to the wounded, President Andrew Johnson awarded her the Medal of Honor in 1865. Think about that, the highest U.S. military award, given to a woman in an era when women couldn't vote or own property freely. She wore the medal for the rest of her life, pinned proudly on her lapel like a declaration of her independence. But the story doesn't end in triumph. After the war, Mary fought a different battle, one against society itself. She became a leading voice for women's rights, advocating for suffrage, equal pay, and rational dress. She gave fiery speeches, wrote essays, and challenged any law that restricted women's freedom. Everywhere she went, crowds gathered. Some cheered, some booed, but no one ignored her. In 1917, the U.S. government reviewed Medal of Honor recipients and revoked 910 medals, including Mary's. Their reason? She hadn't been in active combat. When Mary received the letter, she didn't cry or rage. She simply said, "You can take the medal from me, but you cannot erase the truth." And she kept wearing it anyway. She wore it until the day she died in 1919. Decades after her death, in 1977, the U.S. government revisited the case. They acknowledged what had always been obvious. Mary Walker's service was extraordinary, groundbreaking, and brave beyond measure. They restored the Medal of Honor to her name, making her the only woman in American history to hold it. If this were an interview and you asked Mary how she felt about her life, after the battles, the arrests, the ridicule, the triumphs, she might lean back, adjust her coat, and answer in her characteristically sharp tone, "I lived as I believed. I ask nothing more of myself, and I expect nothing less from the world." Mary Edwards Walker lived a life carved out of defiance, principle, and unshakable conviction. She didn't wait for permission. She didn't soften her edges. She didn't apologize for her choices. And in doing so, she stepped beyond the limitations of her time and into history. Her legacy is not just the Medal of Honor. It is the reminder that change comes from those who refuse to sit quietly, those who ask questions, those who walk their own path, sometimes in trousers, sometimes in battle, but always with courage. Mary once said, "Let the world know that I lived as I believed." And indeed, she did. Her story is a testament to bravery, not the kind that charges into battle, but the kind that stands alone in a world determined to silence you. A kind of bravery the world still needs today.